So, Mandy,
Good morning.
today we have a family law attorney joining us on the show.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So he has quite the following on Instagram. Have you seen his videos?
I have seen a couple of them.
Yeah, he's awesome. He does these cute little clips on, not making light of divorce, but they're very, very informative clips.
Educational.
Yeah, educational, but they're interesting. So, and following too, I'm going to talk about this in a second, but he's been featured on quite a few things as well. So we'll get into that when he gets here. And he's going to talk today about prenuptial agreements.
Which could possibly be so much easier when you lay it out up front.
Right. And on a divorce podcast, why? Well, because sometimes some of us get remarried.
Exactly. And you don't want to repeat history.
And maybe you have a friend that's getting married and you say, hey, coming from somebody who got a divorce and things weren't easy to separate our assets, you might want to think about a prenup. And then he's going to tell us how to do that and how to approach that. So I'm excited about it, aren't you?
I'm excited about it too. I'm going to take copious notes.
Okay, good. All right, well, let's talk about it.
Joey and Mandy, everything divorce related. We can put the S back in your ex appeal. Joey and Mandy, the friends you didn't know you needed on my ex appeal and everything divorce podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to My Ex Appeal, Your Everything Divorce podcast. My name is Joey Camaro, and I'm here with
Mandy Baker.
And we are the friends that you didn't know you needed. So today we will be talking to an attorney, family law attorney, Mandy.
Yes.
And he will be here any second. Are you excited, Mandy?
I'm super excited. I want to say welcome to all of our new listeners. And if you're coming back,
welcome.
You
back.
say welcome back.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to the potty, bitch.
Yep.
Mandy can't physically say it.
I can't, but it's your line. You sound so much better when you say it.
You're like, I can't do it. It doesn't come out of it. But you do say you're super excited all the time. You're always super excited.
I'm always super excited because I just feel like when you're talking about something and we're giving people something to move forward with, some kind of education that they didn't have before, that excites me because then some question that they had along the way is answered.
That's the goal.
Yeah, and that's the goal. And that comforts my heart knowing that someone can now sleep because that part of the hamster wheel has stopped. They have an answer, they have a resource. So that's the reason why I get super excited about every episode.
I'm glad that you get super excited, Mandy.
I do.
I mean, I'm super excited too, but my super excitement looks a little bit different than yours.
Exactly. But I will say this, you put us on a dance floor and you're super excited, but it's way different than mine.
Mm-hmm.
So
all booty.
All booty.
My excitement,
all about the bass.
My excitement is coming from the rear.
You back it up.
When I back it up.
I can't take it forward either, but I can back it up too.
Yeah, I love to back it up.
I do too.
Jersey Turnpike.
There we go.
Perfect timing. Hi. How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
We're
great. It's so funny because Riverside you just pop in. It's not like Zoom where there's a waiting room. So we're always talking like inappropriate stuff when guests jump in, I feel like.
Well, I didn't hear anything inappropriate. And if I love inappropriate. So that's
perfect.
I was just telling Mandy about the Jersey Turnpike. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, tell me a little more. Remind me.
It's when you're dancing and you kind of bend over and you just shake your butt. That's Jersey Turnpike.
Yes.
Yeah, otherwise known as twerking.
No. You bend hands to the ground, Mandy.
Oh.
We're flexible.
All the way hands to the ground and it's one of my signature moves. Let's be honest.
Welcome to the podcast.
Okay, my ex appeal listeners, Mandy's super excited because that's what she always says, but we are very, very, very excited today because we have a special guest today. His name is Tyler Summers. He is from Summers Divorce and Family Law. I will say, and we probably should say this a million times, that today, even though we have a family law attorney with us, that this is not legal advice today. This is for educational, entertainment, however you want to take it, but never legal advice. So he is a family law attorney, a boutique family law firm, which I love. And he is in Needham, Massachusetts. So anybody who doesn't know where that is, Massachusetts, you can drive to anywhere in Massachusetts in about 20 minutes. So Needham's probably about what, 15, 20 minutes out of Boston. And he's been featured in the New York Post, Daily Mail, and Page Six, and he has quite the social media following. And his videos, Mandy and I talked about it a couple minutes ago. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And so, welcome to the show, Tyler. Thank you for coming here. We are look at Mandy's smile on her face.
I love it. Tyler, I was telling Joey that I just love giving people who are going through this hard time an educational source to go to so that hamster wheel at the end of the day can cease a little bit. So their questions are answered. So that's the reason why I get super excited. Plus I've had coffee, so I'm like,
right. I know we're wired. So Tyler, tell us a little bit about you as a person, because we just said that you're an attorney and that's great, but who are you as a person, just on the regular?
So you're assuming I have any time outside of divorce, prenups, child custody to be a human?
No, I'm sure.
Well, I'd say about 90% of what I do is divorce, prenup, child custody, mediation, all of those fun things. In maybe the 10% of the time where I do non-legal things, I'm a huge dog lover. Maybe my dog will make an appearance today. We shall see.
Please.
I have a wonderful partner.
Love it.
And I love to travel. And there's a lot more about me, but I think that'll suffice for now.
Perfect. Yeah, isn't it so difficult to talk about yourself when it's so much easier to talk about what you do and not about yourself? What kind of dog are we talking about here? I want to know.
Well, I have a Shih Tzu.
Oh, they're so cute. They look like little tiny teddy bears.
Exactly.
They're so cute.
Yeah.
Like I said, maybe she will make an appearance, and she's getting groomed later.
Okay.
So she's a little shaggy, but she's still
So Tyler, I want to just kind of jump right into it. So you said that you work with prenups. I'm super curious as to, I've heard rumors, you hear things on the movies and things like that, and you never really think that as a real person you'll deal with a prenup. So why would a couple choose to have a prenup, and what exactly is a prenup?
Sure. Well, a prenuptial agreement is a huge part of my practice. I would say I do 40 plus every year. That would mean hundreds over the course of my career, drafting a prenup, reviewing a prenup. But Mandy, what is a prenup? So a prenup is a contract between two fiancés that they negotiate and sign before they say, I do. This document spells out the financial terms of a potential divorce in the future. How unromantic, right?
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Well, I want to challenge that. I think having difficult conversations with your fiancé strengthens your relationships. And I've observed that the couples that can have these conversations and that can make it through the prenup negotiation process, I think they're in a great position to have a lifelong successful marriage. The vast majority of couples, especially young couples in their 20s or early 30s, they never talk about money before they say I do. They never talk about finances. So then now they find themselves 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, hating their spouse, wanting to get divorced, and having to have these difficult conversations about money. It's much easier to have these conversations about dividing your property and dividing your bank accounts when you're happy. Much easier. And if you're having a hard time when you're engaged having these conversations, can you imagine how difficult they'll be at the other end?
I was just about to say that. Yeah, when you're agreeing and you're in love, and it's easier to say, I want to take care of this person. I want them to be comfortable in case of a separation and things like that.
Or even it could raise some red flags if you're having this conversation with this person and they're, trying to hide it, or they don't want to talk about it, and be like, wait a second, why don't you want to talk about it now? So it could be a red flag.
Right. And I'll also say that, as I said, I've done hundreds of prenups. There are probably a handful of prenup clients that didn't end up getting married.
Wow.
It
That's
doesn't
interesting.
happen often. It's very rare.
Right.
And oftentimes I can tell when a client first calls me and tells me what he or she is looking for. I can have a sense of whether this is going to work or whether it's not going to work. So many people are coming to me, especially in the past 2 or 3 years, where they want prenups that are structured in a way that it doesn't even look like a marriage.
Wow.
Everything is separate. There's nothing on the table for division. There's no possibility of alimony. So I have to say, what are you doing? Do you want to
Right.
be married to this person? It's totally valid to get some structure in place. These assets will be on the table for division. These won't. Alimony may have some reasonable limits in the future. But asking for a prenup that basically makes your marriage null and void,
Right.
I find
Why?
that very telling.
Sure.
And, frankly, a prenup has to be fair and reasonable. That's the standard from our appeals courts. And is a prenup that is structured such that everything is separate, there will never be anything to divide, you'll never have to even face the possibility of helping to support your future spouse who may be your ex. I have to wonder, is that fair and reasonable?
I
Right.
can only imagine living in that household as that married couple with that kind of a prenup. And couples argue. I think every healthy relationship has healthy arguments. And I can only imagine that being on that Rolodex in the back of your head going, it's not mine anyway. Screw it, or he's not getting that. Forget it. I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I agree with you. That would not be a healthy marriage at all, having a prenup. That
I wonder if
already
they're just
separates
doing it.
everything.
Are they just doing it then so they can have the title of, married couple, or the wedding, or why else are they doing it?
Oh,
Just to
yeah.
have,
The show.
just to have the show, or, maybe they're Catholic or something like that, and their parents disapprove of them living together unless they're married. But
Well, and I
yeah, it
also
seems like,
it seems crazy. And Tyler, I was also thinking about it. Like, you're the financial premarital counselor.
I am.
That's
am.
what popped into my head, because I'm like, a lot of people go to premarital counseling, and this is the financial side of that, because you can dive into that with them, whereas a counselor can dive into how to raise your children and where to live and whose
Right.
job. Yeah, that's
Right. And
interesting.
speaking of financials, that's a great point. Part of a valid prenup is having done a full financial disclosure before you sign the document. So you have to disclose everything to your fiance, all accounts, all real estate, all trusts that you may be named as a beneficiary of. Really, every pertinent fact to your financial situation has to be disclosed. People don't like doing that.
no, they do not.
Scary. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
It is
scary to
scary.
yeah.
It is
Yeah.
scary. But again, you need to know what your spouse has on the table, and you have to also disclose to your fiance what you're bringing to the table.
So
And
they
that's
have to know
sometimes
that.
a big challenge that I face with clients. They don't want to disclose this information. They don't understand. Look, we just want to keep everything separate, Tyler. Why do I have to list all my bank accounts and my condo and my 401k? I didn't make the rules. Our Supreme Judicial Court did, but they make sense.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
They
So
totally
speaking
do.
of finances, so most people think with a prenup, it's like Mandy mentioned earlier, it's in the movies, it's on TV shows, and it's people with Lamborghinis and mansions. So prenups are just for everybody. It's not just for the rich, right?
That is a myth. It's
Okay.
an outdated myth. There is so much to benefit from a prenup, even if you have nothing. Because what if you make money during the marriage? What if you inherit money during the marriage? What if you sell your company to Microsoft and you receive $1 billion windfall? Wouldn't it be nice if you had some guidance on how that windfall would be divided if, God forbid, you divorced? So it's not about protecting what you've already earned prior to the marriage or what you may inherit from mom and dad or grandma and grandpa. It can also address if you're professionally successful during the marriage, how are we going to protect that success? While also being fair to the other spouse.
Right. Yeah, especially for young couples, because I know just from my first marriage, I was really young. We were both really young. And so neither one of us made money at the time. But through our marriage, the tables kept turning where one made a lot of money and one didn't. And so, like you said, you can't predict. I mean, some people probably can predict how much money they're going to make roughly, but most people, you don't know. Things
Right.
happen, you lose a job, you don't have any money, but the other person does. So it's hard to predict that. So it is kind of protecting everybody. Yeah.
I always tell my prenup clients that we can't only be thinking about what's good for you today. We
Hmm.
need a prenup that's going to make sense in 5 years, in 10 years, in 30 years. And we don't have a crystal ball about what's
Mm-mm.
going to unfold over the next 3 decades. You could get sick. You could get hit by a car. There's so many variables that we can just not account for. So
Right.
having a super strict prenup that may make sense this year may make no sense whatsoever in 20 years. And you could find yourself in a very bad situation. So it's not just thinking about today, it's also trying to think about 20, 30 years down the road.
Wow.
Right. I love that.
And
And the
that's not
average
easy.
Joe.
That's not
No.
easy.
No, no, it's not easy. Well, how do you discuss prenups with couples without damaging their relationships?
Well, I usually don't deal with couples because this is a very important point. At
Okay.
least in Massachusetts, both fiancés should have independent legal representation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I'm usually dealing with one fiancé.
Okay.
And I'll usually ask that client right at the beginning of our journey together. I'll say, can you and your fiancé talk about these issues? If not, I don't want to cause chaos at home.
Right.
I want the communication to happen between the lawyers. And I know that sounds contentious and litigious, but these are difficult concepts. Most of my clients have not been divorced before. They have no idea what separate property, marital property, they don't know what alimony means. It's hard for two people at home to have a discussion about the division of assets when they have no idea how divorce works.
But makes sense because they're not even married yet.
Right. Why would they know that?
Why would they
Why would
know?
any?
And it's
Yeah.
my job and it's the other lawyer's job to make sure our clients understand how a divorce would go here in Massachusetts if you didn't have a prenup. That's the starting point. Because what the
That's so
prenup
good to know.
does,
Yeah.
the prenup says, we understand what the law is. In Massachusetts, it's Chapter 208, Section 34 of our general laws. That's our starting point. What does that law say? What does that law mean? How do we want to change the terms of our divorce from what the default law is? That's what a prenup is. It's saying
Interesting.
we respect the law, we understand that law, but we, as an engaged couple, we want to decide on something different.
That's
Okay.
interesting. So it's almost like, because it seems like it's so easy to get married and it's so difficult to get a divorce. It almost seems like this should just be a requirement of marriage, is
Oh, yeah.
to
To
dive into these things, to go over what a divorce looks like. Like it should be part of it, and it would make life for everybody who eventually gets a divorce a lot easier in the long run, because you have that understanding going in. Because
Right.
what Mandy and I talk about most of the time, Tyler, is how our demographic is female, and how scary it is, and how sometimes people are blindsided by all this information and overwhelmed. If they
Right.
went into it having, even if it's like you said, 20 years from now it happens, but it's just kind of like, oh, I did hear about this before. I do remember speaking about this.
Right. And
Why
when
is
you
this
go
not
to
a thing?
city, well, when you go to City Hall to apply for a marriage license,
Mhm.
they don't tell you what divorce means and what you
Uh-uh.
may have to pay or give out or divide. They say nothing about that.
It's almost like you have
Okay.
to present the prenup. It would be nice to present the prenup in exchange for your marriage license. Like we understand what we're getting into and how to get out of it. Now we want to we want to accept that challenge, not that challenge, but that opportunity to make it work.
Exactly. I don't know why that's not a thing. I don't know why when you go to City Hall and apply for your marriage license that you are not forced to sign some sort of informed consent. I understand what my rights are. I understand what my responsibilities are. Frankly, if we had that, it would mean a lot less backlog in our probate and family courts.
For
For
sure.
sure.
Yeah, that makes way more. Or
Right.
even just a little class, if you will. I mean, when I got a divorce, I mean, they don't have the parenting class anymore, but I had to take a parenting class. I'm like, why did I not have to take a parenting class before I became a parent? How about
Me
that
too.
Well, they just reinstated the parenting course.
Right, I
Um,
did see that. I saw
And
that.
I agree with you completely. They force you to take a course at the divorce. Why not take that course before you say I do?
Right.
Do
Or
all the things.
before I push out some kids. Some people need a parenting class no matter what, but that's a whole other subject.
Yes.
I won't
It
even
is.
go there. I won't even go there because that parenting class did nothing. I just went and sat at a high school and barely listened, and I got out of there. I was like, I know how to be a parent. Mind your business. So, Tyler, if we were to get a prenup, years go by, can we update, or is this like set in stone? Too bad for your life. This is it forever. Can we update these payments?
It's a great question. A prenup can absolutely be updated, and typically we call them post-nuptial agreements.
Okay.
Now, modifying your prenup or signing a revised prenup or a post-nup, whatever we're going to call it, it's not as simple as looking at your husband or looking at your wife and say, yeah, let's just agree to get rid of paragraph 3. Shake my hand. That's not enough. It needs to be in writing. There should be a full financial disclosure at the time that you modify your prenup. You need to know what the other person's bringing to the table, and that person needs to know what you're bringing to the table. And finally, you should have counsel once again.
Makes
This
so
makes
much
sense.
sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. You can't just decide on your own.
Well,
Shake
'cause
it.
And
like-
it's not
yeah.
uncommon. It's not uncommon that, a lot of people only want, like I was saying before, people come to me and they want a prenup that makes sense for today, but in my mind makes no sense for 20 years from now.
Right.
For example, if I'm representing a woman and she tells me she's going to have kids and there's a possibility she's going to be a stay-at-home mom, but her fiance wants her to say no alimony forever. Well, I'll tell that client, you can sign this if you want, but the minute you pop out a kid and become go on maternity leave or become a stay-at-home mom, you need to insist on a change to that prenup
Right.
because you need the protection of alimony.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do
that
a lot
would
of
be a situation where, okay, the prenup makes sense now. We don't have kids, but if we're going to have kids, my husband is going to have to agree to modify this document, or we're not having kids.
Yeah.
that actually
Yeah.
is something that people probably don't even consider is the whole who's staying home with the kids. I mean, you stay home with your kids sometimes for a long time if you keep having kids. That's a long time to be taking care of
And that's a
children.
job.
And it's a job and you're not working. And then when you try to go back to work, it's difficult to find a job. So that's something to consider. So it's not just about, you think of prenup and you think of only finances, meaning money that you have. You don't think of what could be in the future and things like that with staying home with your kids. So there's so many layers to a prenup.
Right.
it seems.
Right. And it's
Crazy.
back to that key principle. Don't sign a prenup that may make sense today, but will make no sense in 5, 10, or 20 years from now.
Which
And
is
do you
the
think?
Go
Oh, I'm
ahead.
sorry, Andy.
No,
Do
go
you
ahead.
think that some attorneys just do that? They just like a one and done. They don't care. They're just like, I'll just write up a prenup that's good for you now, and they don't take the time to make somebody understand what could happen in the future with
Sure.
the bad eggs, Tyler.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So you have to be careful about who you're choosing to
Right.
represent you. Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so let's get into that. In the age of social media and everyone has access to a web, whether you're going to a library or college or your iPad, would you say trust those online sources, or would you say absolutely not? Get in front of a human being with a beating heart who could talk to you about what's best for you and your future?
So I'm all about advancements and people being entrepreneurial, but these online prenup template services, Steer clear, stay far, far away.
All right.
I reviewed very recently a prenup that was spit out by one of the leading platforms. I won't say the name.
Of course.
And it was garbage.
Hmm.
Inconsistencies, different states' laws were merged. It was such a mess. And this is like the leading provider.
Wow.
Right.
We may not all know who it is.
I have an idea.
You really need to sit down with a human. Maybe someday AI and computers can grasp all the nuances and complexities that really involve a prenup negotiation, but they're not there.
Okay.
So I'm with people. I want to do things on my phone. I don't want to talk to lawyers unless I really have to. But when it comes to a prenup, you really have to speak to a human being.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like that too. I'll be honest, like I would much rather do something online. I don't want
Sure.
to talk to, I don't want to get on the phone with somebody, but even with, there's just simple things in life that you end up having to talk to somebody, and you're like, after you talk to them, you're like, I wish I had done that in the first place.
Well,
It seems so convenient, but
it seems convenient, but the web can also lead you down a rabbit hole. You don't know who's on the other end of that. You don't know if it's AI. You don't know if it's an educational person with a background and knowledge, or if it's just you're typing to Chat GPT and they're spitting out an answer to you.
yeah.
You just have no idea.
And wouldn't you want to get on the phone or in person with someone like Tyler and be able to have a conversation at least and
Well, I
talk
would-
about it a little bit? This
Well,
is your life is
yeah.
involved.
Your life is involved, and when you deal with someone like Tyler, I'm assuming, Tyler, that you get to know your clients, and so when you go to the other lawyer, you're like, no, she really does have ambition. She has dreams. She's going to be somewhere in 20 years. We need to protect that for her and for him.
Absolutely.
That's something.
Absolutely. That's one thing that draws me to this field of work is getting to know these people, getting to know what's going on in their lives.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's exactly.
I've been invited to the wedding as the
Oh,
prenup
I
attorney.
love that.
That's awesome. That's good. Yeah. That's what, but we're in this for the same reason. We like to get to know clients. We say all the time, no one's going to treat you better than us. Like we're become family because you get to know people really, really well through all of this. And the computer's never going to do that. No amount of AI will ever do that anyway, even if it gets to the point where it's not garbage, as Tyler
Right.
said, So listen, Tyler, I'm enlightened by all of this. I think that this should be a requirement. Who do I have to talk to?
I know. I think that's your new movement. It's like, I think so.
I'm going to grab a sign. Everybody get behind me. We're walking.
Yeah, absolutely. I've, thought of speaking to state legislatures about providing some sort of education prior to a marriage.
I think so.
Yes.
I think so. You do so many other things prior to the marriage. It's just another layer of education. It's another layer of knowledge. You want to walk into it knowing everything because life happens and then you're married and then the kids come or the pets come and you're blown away with life and everything else just gets swept under the rug and we'll deal with it later. And then you're dealing with it with a divorce when you hate each other and
Awful.
you're blind.
It's awful at that point.
You're leading blind.
Yeah, it would be. And if we could all talk, and just talking about it today, and if one person listens to this today,
It helps.
It's one person who has a better understanding if they're going into another marriage, maybe they're already divorced or they have a friend who's getting married. And if we can just normalize this, just like we're trying to normalize divorce a little bit, we're not like go divorce, but to normalize it a little bit more so people talk about it a little bit more. And then it's a little, like a teeny bit less scary that they say, okay, that's not a scary conversation to have with my soon-to-be spouse, that we do need to talk about this and we do need to protect ourselves. And when you talk about it with your fiance, you're basically saying, I'm not just trying to protect myself, I'm trying to protect you too.
Absolutely. Well, and kids too, I think. I think a lot of moms don't get remarried. A lot of fathers stay single dads. And so if their children are choosing to get married or live with someone for the rest of their life, it's something that protects their kids because they went through it.
Absolutely. I get calls from moms and dads. I've gotten calls from grandma and grandpa. And
Wow.
that's all well and good. I'm glad they're looking out for their grandkids and their children. But these engaged couples, they are adults. They
Right.
need to be calling me. They need to
Right.
be engaged in the process. I've had quite a few prenups where it's the dad who's attending the meetings
Oh, that's
and filling out my forms
Oh,
and
wow.
providing, ugh, that's a slippery slope for me. That doesn't go well for me.
No, I would just say
Wow.
encourage the children to. It's your marriage. It's not mine.
Right.
You
But
go
if
do
dad
it.
is rich or mom is rich or grandma and grandpa have a ton of money, it's understandable that they're
Yeah.
worried. Oh, my grandson's getting married. And I think
Yeah.
she's a gold digger. We got to
Yeah.
protect the wealth that we're giving to her grandson.
Well,
That makes sense. Yeah. I would.
That makes complete sense. So the trust fund that's going to be divvied out, and how is that going to be spent? And wow, you deal with a lot.
Listen, my kids are starting to get towards married age, if you will. And so I think about that stuff all the time. I'm like, how do I push these kids to get a prenup? But I'll be the one calling, and Tyler's like, no, you're Joey. Your kids
I'll
need
make
to
an
call.
exception for you, Joe, and you can call me
Aw.
at any time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, because I will.
Mine can't even drive yet, Tyler. So you're in the clear with me. Mine don't even have a driver's license yet.
So, Joey, how are you going to broach the topic of
Oh,
prenups?
I already broached it. It's already been broached.
And how do they react?
So, well, we kind of just touched the subject a little bit because my daughter's moving in with her boyfriend. So they already are discussing finances and splitting bills and things like that. So that was my broach, if you will, just to stay like you have to have these conversations about your finances and how you're going to split the bills. And I mean, I don't know if people who aren't married put things in writing on how they're going to split bills and things like that.
Some do. Some do.
Yeah. So,
We would call that a cohabitation agreement.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there are cohabitation agreements then.
Right. In Massachusetts, we don't have common law marriage.
Right.
Meaning
Okay.
you can live with someone for 30 years and, share all your expenses. But if
Yeah.
one wants to leave, they're leaving and there's no skin off their back.
Wow. Okay, Texas
Right.
is very different.
Yeah. So it's been broached. I think I'm trying to, like we just said, trying to make it a little bit more normal. So it's not a bad thing at all.
We need to normalize it.
Yes.
It's not only for the rich.
Nope.
It doesn't have to be contentious.
No.
Nope.
It should be win-win for both fiancés. And it should be a way to start your marriage on a strong footing.
I
think it would.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
I think it would. I think it's definitely you put it
And
out
if you
there. But
if you can't agree on the prenup terms, you've
You've said a lot
you-
about your marriage before.
you've
you
said a lot
enter
about
into it.
yourself
Yeah.
and your marriage, and you've probably dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Agreed.
Exactly. Just talking about it, bringing it out there. Bring it to the service and see what happens.
Exactly.
Why not? Why not? Well, Tyler, thank you so much. I want to give a few plugs and see if somebody wants to reach out to you right now. They have the phone. What's the easiest thing? Go to your website, go to
Sure, you should
IG.
go to my website,
Okay. That's Summers.
SummersFamLaw.com. And there's a contact form, which I
Okay.
respond to all the time. I'm also, as you mentioned, Joey, I'm very active on Instagram and TikTok at Boston Family Lawyer. I post quite a bit on Facebook. I post quite a bit on LinkedIn. I blog on my website. Sometimes I go live on Instagram and TikTok. But I love engaging with people, whether they're my clients or not. I mean, my clients I prioritize, of course, and I can't say I have too much free time to respond to too many DMs on Instagram or TikTok, but I do check it often. So happy to speak to you in any way that is appropriate for you to reach out to me.
Without giving legal advice on TikTok and Instagram, I'm
No
sure.
legal advice. No
No
legal
legal-
advice.
No, but I'm sure people are reaching out and asking questions. So they can reach out to you on any of those platforms. And you are always on Instagram. And we love your videos. And I
Yes.
aspire to maybe do one video like you. I asked Mark, I said, look at what Tyler's doing. Why can't you do that? Be more like. Yeah. So
Oh,
he's gonna
Joey.
try.
We
I
can
know,
talk
it's so
about
silly.
that offline, Joey.
Yeah, okay. We started talking about that when we talked.
We
We
did.
did. So, yeah, I'm going to tell him to be more like you. He'll love that. So, so Tyler, thank you so much. If you don't mind hanging around, Mandy, do you have anything to add before we wrap
I
up?
don't. I just want to say thank you so much. I know you're super busy and it's early, and I'm just super humbled again to have you on to share the knowledge and just help. And I love that. So thank you very, very much.
You're welcome, and congratulations on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you. And hopefully we'll try to rope you back in to come back,
Yeah.
maybe.
I'll be there in a second. You say
Awesome.
when.
Oh,
Oh,
thanks.
let's do it right now. Let's start another one.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So, okay, my X Appeal listeners, thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Tyler for coming on today. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mandy. Please have people subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Press the
Tell them.
button.
Press a button. Mandy just wants you to press a button. So if you're still here, that means you made it to the end of another episode, and we will see you next time on My X Appeal.
Thanks to our listeners, sponsors, and our lawyers on My Ex Appeal and Everything Divorce Podcast.